Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Elam Road podcast, where on today's show we're going to be going over the defeat at Villa yesterday. We're recording this Thursday morning, so this is a very raw reaction. We weren't planning on doing a full-time show after the Villa game, but I think with the nature of the result and how many talking points there are, Callum pointed out that we should definitely be doing one. So listen to this before the Newcastle game on Saturday for sure. Remember to comment down below, subscribe to the socials, drop a subscription to the channels on Spotify and YouTube. Callum, how are we doing?
I've been better, Mike, to be honest with you. I wasn't too pleased last night, but if we're looking in general, very good, thank you.
Dan, how are we?
All good. It just feels a bit worse, I think, after a midweek game when you travel all out there, traffic's quite bad, the away wasn't full anyway, and then you get back at like 1 a.m. at the end of it all.
And a debacle on the ticket front as well with Southampton. So throw everything in the mix yesterday.
We all got them in the end, though.
I got a ticket at 12:30 this morning. Thank you, Brentford Football Club. So there you go. I'm happy now.
Just a quick word on that away end before we get into tweet of the week. I was going to tweet out something about the away end and about how absolutely woeful it was. I decided not to because I thought, in the heat of the moment, you know, you don't really want to criticize fans. You want to be criticizing the team, not the fans that are paid to go up there. But can I just say, it was the worst away end I think I've experienced ever as a Brentford fan. There was no energy whatsoever. Every time you tried to get a chant going, no one picked it up. I get that it's a midweek, and I get that, you know, less people are drinking and whatnot, and there's reasons for it. But Dan, that was as bad as it's been, I think, this season at least, from an away end. It was pretty shocking, I thought.
Yeah, it didn't help that where I was, there wasn't actually that many people around me.
Yeah.
So if I started chanting or shouting, I just felt like I was doing it by myself, which is, you know, not the best.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. But I didn't want to tweet that out after the game because I thought I might ruffle a few feathers. But just to say at the start, can we please, like, if you're going to go to an away, just get behind the boys. I know it's difficult when we're 3-0 down. Seems to happen at Villa. Just find ourselves 3-0 down a lot, or 2-0 down, trying to constantly overturn deficits.
3 goals in 13 minutes as well, which is carbon copy to when we were 3-0 down in 13 minutes a few seasons ago. But
I have to say, though, with the away ends, we have had some quite good ones this season. I thought it's improved a bit this season since they've so the way they sell away tickets now, they you can choose like a block. And obviously there are specific blocks as well for like singing sections if you want to get involved in that. And I think that has helped. We've had some really good ones when it's been full. I think it didn't help, I guess, that it wasn't full. And I can understand it's difficult to get to. And I think that quarter-final against Newcastle in a couple of weeks, I'm fearful for the amount of people that are going to be there, to be honest.
Do you know what?
I think we're at
with those kind of games, though. I think with those kind of games, because I don't know how many, it will attract the most loyal Brentford fans and the people that want to go up there. And I assume, because it's Newcastle, that a lot of the people that do go there have booked the following day off work, in which case they'll be out on the Raz in Newcastle afterwards, which could make for a better atmosphere. But I've heard people kind of say when there's like a big away day at Anfield on a Saturday, they'd much prefer it if it was something where the taps are a bit higher and you get people that have been going for a while and they're a bit more, they've been more engaged as a fan base, as opposed to some of the new fans we've attracted, which is nothing against the new fans that we've attracted with Premier League club now. It's how it works. But yesterday the away end was flat as anything.
It's a bit odd. We were charging only a £5 for coaches yesterday, but I think it's that time of year. I mean, I remember Brighton last year where we only sold, I think, 1,700 tickets this time last year, only a few weeks before Christmas. It's very hard to pinpoint, to be honest with you, but maybe the away form has something to do with it. And it's on television as well, you know. Who really knows, to be honest? But fair play to you boys, you were there. I can't say I was last night, to be honest with you, but I think we know who made the right decision. So,
well, for Newcastle, I don't have any annual leave left, unfortunately, so I'm going to have to watch that one on the TV.
Hey,
that's fair. You know, Wednesday night in Newcastle, I don't blame you. I do not blame you. As someone, just last thing before we get on to Tweet of the Week, as someone that I've done all the aways this season. I've only been to one home game, which means I've seen us win once the whole season. As someone who lives not in Brentford now, it's quite painful to think that we've won 6 games and I've only seen one win. So yeah.
What, Colchester? You went to Colchester as well?
No, I went to Palace on the first day, and I'm going to Newcastle on Saturday. But
I've been
to every away game, and they've just seen us lose a lot and draw.
Mike's the reason.
You are the reason, Mike. Go on, there's the door, mate. Go on.
Should just stop going. Anyway, boys, tweet of the week. This one from @OMaxMondi saying, and we're going to talk about this in a bit more depth in the episode when we go through the goals, but he's saying sadness is accepting that Ethan Pinnock is on the decline. Callum, I'll hand to you first, and then we'll come to Dan. What do you make of that?
I mean, look, he's not had his best season at this moment in time, I would say, personally, in a Brentford shirt. Whether I can officially blame him for anything that's gone on, he's not fully to blame. I would say certainly there's people more accountable for that. But no, I mean, look, he's made a few errors. But look, you've got to think, he has been such a forefront in this team, and I fully back him still. I think he is an incredible player to have within Brentford Football Club, and personally, I still don't think you can drop Ethan Pinnock, to be honest with you. So I would disagree with that comment, to be honest with you. Whether they would say otherwise, whether you boys would say otherwise, but yeah, I don't. To put it short, I don't think he's had his best season, but I wouldn't be looking to officially blame him.
I think what worries me, Dan, is that we have seen on this season on a few occasions those situations where he's isolated in a 1v1. More often than not, the striker is now getting the better of him, and those are the situations where I think we all kind of felt pretty comfortable with Ethan Pinnock being in terms of those 1v1 situations. He's not the quickest, but he somehow manages to get his lanky limbs around the player, and he'll get the ball or kick it out into touch or make the tackle. Whereas this season, or even yesterday, just every time he was one-on-one with Ollie Watkins, my confidence in him was just like completely shot. It looked like he just, I don't know, are his legs gone? I think that's the question we're asking. Because, yeah, go for it.
I agree to an extent. Initially, I thought his what he was struggling with was more the playing out from the back and all that, because obviously he doesn't have too much experience of doing that. Certainly not to the standard of someone like Nathan Collins next to him and even Vandenberg, who are more like the modern centre back that you see nowadays. But yeah, recently he does look a bit slow at times, but I also think he is in those one-on-one situations more often than he perhaps ever has been before. And we often nowadays, we see one of our centre backs often halfway up the pitch, man marking whoever's up front for the other team. And I prefer it when Collins goes into them positions, because when Pinnock goes into them positions, he can struggle to stay with the man and struggle to get back in line when he needs to. And I think he is struggling with perhaps the braver way of playing that we are trying to do this season, which I think is also resulting in us maybe beating the teams that we can say that we're better than technically perhaps, and then struggling against teams that, are probably better than us because we're not really adapting. And he's not winning his duels against certain players who are very, very good players, and you don't necessarily blame him. And I think there's too many one-on-ones going on throughout the side in certain games, because it's not realistic. Like going back to when we played Manchester City as well, the amount of times he was just left with Haaland, and he may beat Haaland to it 2 or 3 times, but you only need Haaland to get to it first once or twice, and then you've let 2 in.
Yeah, I think it's not going to get any easier as well. We're going to talk about the game on Saturday and him coming up against Alexander Isak, which I've seen a few people sort of grimacing at online. We'll get into that, but let's talk about the game, chaps. Where do we start? I think, Callum, we said before the game it would be another kind of one of those fixtures where it gives us a steer on maybe where we are. I think I tweeted in the promo for the last episode, "We're good, but are we good?" And then I think that kind of 13-minute spell maybe answered that question a little bit. Initial thoughts, Callum, from watching. What did it look like in that first game?
Frustration. I can see what Thomas Frank's trying to do. He's trying to play an exciting type of football, high press, and within the first 15 minutes, they were really trying to press the back line of Aston Villa. But as soon as they worked past that press, Aston Villa, they were finding gaps within the midfield very, very quickly. And I go back to Tottenham away, for example. That is where they utilised that. We were trying to again play this extensive press, and they were working their way around it with ease and scored 3 very quick goals again, like last night, for example. And you could see it happening. I said very early to you both, I said, we're playing this high press, we're getting caught out in the midfield, and these goals are going to come quick and fast. And that's exactly what happened last night. So I think we need to go back to the drawing board. I do like, he's trying to go out there, he's trying to score goals, he's trying to put the opposition under pressure. But we realistically need to look at ourselves. This has happened multiple times this season away from home. And it's causing us to concede goals in quick succession. And that puts us onto the back foot. And frustration, boys.
I think it's weird that the team we had the most joy against in terms of that high press up the pitch was Man City. Maybe that was a precursor for how poor they were going to be over the next 10 games or so. But I think your thoughts on the lineup, Dan? No Norgaard, no Jensen. I tweeted out it was a fun lineup to start with, but I also tweeted out that it was going to be a big night for Yarmo. You mentioned the press there, Callum. Having watched Match of the Day back, having watched the Sky highlights a few times, I think Yarmo's pressing, I think he maybe the occasion got to him. The second start in the Premier League this season, but he was a bit erratic and left Jan out alone a lot, Dan.
Yeah, I think his strength is, I think he can be quite good on the ball, and technically he's got quality. But, and I don't think it's just him. I think it happens with a lot of young players. I think it takes more time to learn that side of the game and to learn where you should be when. And obviously it helps as well if he plays regularly with someone like Yanel or any of the midfielders. Obviously he doesn't play too regularly. It's really unfortunate that we lost Norgaard and Jensen at the same time when they were both available on Saturday. Obviously no one saw Norgaard coming. I thought maybe Damsgaard could play the deeper kind of Jensen role, and then someone like Carvalho could come in. And I know you're an advocate for Carvalho, and I think he does deserve more game time, more chance to show what he can do in that number 10. And I think, although we wouldn't have had Damsgaard then in the half spaces further up the field, I think he can still dictate the game. I think he's at that level now where he can control things for us, and he can dictate the game from deeper like Jensen does. And perhaps in hindsight, that's a better option. And again, when players haven't played too much Premier League football, Yarmolik's still not had too many starts. Do you want to give him a start away at Villa Park when he's not really started all season? I'm not too sure. It is big pressure on him, and like I said, I think technically he's got quality, but he's not going to be like the defensive screen that Yanel and Norgaard are when they start together. Because even in the preview to this one, I thought that this was one where you'd want Jensen and Norgaard together. You'd want that extra defensive screen, whereas some games you can go with maybe one of them and two more attacking players.
I'm going to throw this out here, and some may disagree because he hasn't played in this position for Brentford, but he has for Republic of Ireland. I personally would have Collins within a midfield position, personally, just because you can see his ability, with picking out that pass. And I seriously think he would offer a better solution in the middle of that park if we're in this situation on Saturday where we're missing, both Jensen and Norgaard, although it would mean, moving things around at the back, I think that would be a better way to set up, to be honest with you. And we've seen, when he has played for Republic of Ireland, he does play very well in that kind of centre defensive mid position. So Thomas Frank, if you're watching, this is personally what I would do with my FA Level 2 badge, but, it's entirely up to you.
I agree to an extent, but I think that causes problems in terms of, are you bringing Ben Mee in? And Ben Mee and Pinnock as a centre-back partnership, I think you need some legs in there somewhere. Not saying Pinnock's legs are completely gone, but you need,
someone like Vandenberg, the centre-back. And
but then you're bringing Roslev in.
Yeah, well, this is of course, this is what people are going to have a slight, issue with as such. I think personally, I think Roslev, give him another crack, although he's going to be up against Anthony Gordon, no doubt. I personally think there is not enough in that midfield at this moment in time if we're going to go with Janel and Yarmolik we're going to cause problems. We're going to cause problems for ourselves. And I think we need someone with that core stability in the middle of that park who is going to have a defensive mindset and an attacking mindset. And that is something that Nathan Collins will provide. But
if Ayer's back, then I think that would be
not a chance. He's on the treatment centre for the rest of the season.
We'll see.
You know what that's like. But
listen, we'll talk about the possible changes for Newcastle, because I think that I've heard people say maybe we bring Mads back into the team, maybe we push Sepp into centre half and give Pinnock a rest. So we'll talk about that in a bit more detail, because I do think that's not a terrible shout considering how little Sepp offers going forward and how little Mads offers going forward. Both of them kind of just there to do a defensive job. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. Just sort of, we started okay. I think the pressing was. I think Yarmo did have a bit of success in that first kind of 15 minutes. I remember him winning the ball quite high up and then having a shot that looked like it got deflected and out for a corner. But for their first goal, I do want to just quickly give some love to Aston Villa and Morgan Rogers in particular, because what a finish! First of all, I think we've been caught out when they break fast. I think it's Kamara that ends up finding Rogers in the middle of the pitch, who gives it to Watkins and then lays it back for Rogers. What a finish! But Dan, I think that might be the best performance against Brentford that I've seen this season from an individual player, because he was everywhere, especially from that way. And people around us were even saying he's popping up in midfield, he's out on the wing, he's linking the play with Watkins, he's dropping deep to come and get the ball from Digne. It was like we must have had a plan for him, because he's been electric all season. But you could tell from Thomas Frank's post-match comments that he's a player that we really like, or he's a player that Thomas Frank really liked. And he was just running the show for them.
Yeah, it's interesting because he wasn't getting rave reviews at Middlesbrough before Aston Villa got him back. He was a decent player for them, but he wasn't getting rave reviews in the Championship. And he dyed his hair blonde, so we couldn't miss him.
I was thinking, who the hell is that? When he dyed his hair blonde, I was literally thinking, who is that on the left?
Getting in the Christmas spirit.
Yeah. It was a good finish. Mate, perhaps we could have got to him tighter to close down the shot, but I think we generally allow long shots to come in the hope that they won't be stuck in the top corner like he did. He was everywhere. Obviously, it didn't help with our defensive screen, like we talked about, not being what it usually is. I thought they played through us in general in the midfield far too easily. There were gaping holes at times. And I think Damsgaard said in his interview afterwards, sometimes we need to commit a foul and just stop them. And I don't think we do that enough, to be honest, especially during that 13-minute period. And we've seen it before. We often concede goals in periods like that. And we need to do something. We need to change something in those moments. We need to break up the game. We need to try and wrestle momentum back. And I don't think we did enough.
Callum, I'll hand to you for the penalty situation. Obviously, Pinnock left in the 1v1 that Dan just mentioned. But again, we're so high up the pitch. I think KLP ends up challenging Leon Bailey in Aston Villa's half, which then gives Watkins space to run into. And we kind of mentioned already that when Pinnock gets into those isolated situations, now we're kind of grimacing a little bit at the thought of it. Your view on the pen, having had the advantage of replays, because from our position, it looked nailed on. It looks a bit clumsy, but your take on it?
Yeah, I said from the moment I looked at the replay, which of course happened quite quickly, that he's missed the ball, and there's been little contact with Watkins. He's been known in the past to make a lot out of challenges in the box, and the referee actually had a little bit of time to think about it before he gave the decision. So he obviously wasn't 100% certain. But that's where the issue arose, because I think if the referee doesn't give that as a penalty, then VAR have got to have confidence that they can overturn the referee's decision. That's why it's so clear. The referee's got to be clear in his mindset, because it makes it very, very hard for the VAR to get involved at that point. And they looked at it for a while, but frustration. I don't think it was a pen. I really don't think it was a pen. And, I think they got it wrong with the red card. I think he's a lucky boy to still be on the pitch as well, to be honest with you. But
well, I think that's the thing. Like, if you're gonna give the pen and it's a foul, then there's no way that he's trying to play the ball down. He's behind him and he's just kind of all over him back. So if you're gonna give the pen, then you need to send him off because it's not a genuine attempt to play the ball. But is it just a case of, if it wasn't given, then it wouldn't be overturned? It's that kind of fine margin. But you've got to be sure in these situations. You just look at the Liverpool-Newcastle decision. I don't know if you boys have seen that. That's gotten a lot of airtime. But the trip in the box from Joe Gomez, I think it was, or I know Quansah, sorry, on Isak. They're missing stuff like that. I'd say that's probably more clear and obvious than the one against Watkins. But again, it's kind of, if you're going to do one decision, then you have to make the next one. It's almost like they've kind of found a middle ground. Well, we're not really sure about it, so we won't send him off, in a way. Dan, how did you see it?
Yeah, well, yellow card is wrong. If he didn't make an attempt to go for the ball and it's a foul and Watkins is clearly through, and if they think it's a foul and they agree that it's a penalty, then it should be a red card. There's no middle ground in the law there which says if you're not sure, only give him a yellow.
Yeah.
But having said that, it did look really soft. I think if the referee didn't give the penalty, then VAR wouldn't overturn it because it's not a clear and obvious error. But it's probably also not clear and obviously wrong when he does give it. So I can also see why they don't intervene there. But if it is a foul and the referee has determined it's a foul, what is clear and obvious is that Pinnock doesn't go for the ball and probably should be sent off in that situation. But, you win some, you lose some, and next week we'll probably be talking about something else.
Very true. For the third, I want to talk about the kind of Janelt Norgaard situation in this one, because John McGinn breezes past Janelt, and I think if there's like an action that kind of summarizes why we miss Christian Norgaard so much, and we have this conversation so much, and people slag off Norgaard, and then we'll be like, well, he's out now. Look what's going to happen in a game against the physical side. He likes to break quickly. John McGinn gets fouled by Norgaard in that situation 9 times out of 10 when he breezes past him. Janelt is then on the back foot, traveling at pace, then falls over in the box. It's just like he can't do that role. He's not got the positional awareness to do that role. He doesn't give himself enough space, and then he doesn't make the foul when he needs to. I can think of so many situations where he's not made the foul or not got the yellow card for the benefit of the team. And Callum, you mentioned that you were worried when you didn't see Norgaard in the team. There's been a bit of a debate about it recently on this podcast, and also just wider Brentford, in terms of who's going to be in the team. Is it Janelt and Norgaard? Is it both? I don't think we need both. But if it's going to be a 6, it has to be Norgaard, right?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, he's not had the best of seasons again, I would say, personally, in a Brentford shirt. But what he does offer, he offers, a captain's presence on that pitch, number one, especially last night where we've conceded a few goals in quick succession. I think he really does. You see him at home. He's very quick to get at the back line and give them that confidence that they need. And yeah, I just think, he assesses those situations like you talk about, McGinn, take the yellow card, if they're going up the pitch, take the yellow card, and then, we're in a different situation from there as it is. And he assesses these things very, very different to Janelt. But yeah, I knew from the moment Norgaard wasn't in that team, we were in big, big trouble. Because I've seen, Tottenham, as I've touched upon a few times in this episode today, we had that midfield of Janelt and Yarmolenko in the midfield, and we were just too open. And that's exactly what happened last night. And we paid for it, unfortunately.
Callum, I was going to come to you for the Watkins or the cash volley, because I thought that there was a case for Watkins to be interfering with play in the build-up when he's kind of just behind Pinnock and Pinnock heads it clear. And I've got written in the running order, refereeing performance, take it away, Callum, because I don't know what you've said to me that he wasn't interfering with play. In terms of like the Adam Armstrong thing in the Brighton-Southampton game last week, maybe let us know in the comments on that decision in particular what you thought, because I've seen a few people say, well, if Armstrong's interfering with playing the Southampton game, how is Watkins not affecting Pinnock's position at Villa yesterday? But just the refereeing performance in general, Callum, I don't want to make it about the referee because, you know, we were poor, we deserve to lose. It's not about the refereeing display. But it felt like every single 50-50 went to Villa. It felt like at the times when he wasn't sure about which way to give a throw or a corner, he'd look at his linesman. The linesman wasn't sure either. It would just go to Villa. But it was poor. It was poor from the ref, at least from being there.
These referees, I feel, struggle, especially the ones coming through, struggle with these particular atmospheres at these grounds. And, you know, I think they're so reliant on VAR that sometimes they just forget how to officiate, you know, some of these games. And, you know, because they just think, okay, we've got a cushion here where if we do make a mistake in these, you know, in these big decisions, you know, that come across a 90-minute game of football, that they've got that cushion there from VAR to say, actually, yeah, you've made a mistake here. Go and have a look at it. That's why I like, you know, the Championship down from there, the League Cup as it stands at the moment. There is no VAR. As a referee, you are 100% charge of that football match, and you can see how much better it is. To be honest with you, like that, you know. Although they get scrutinised a lot more, you know, they're 100% on this decision making. And, you know, as you rightfully say, Mike, there was a few decisions yesterday where he was just like, I ain't got a decision, I ain't got a clue what to give, you know. And yeah, that it's poor. It is poor from the referee. And, you know, it will happen across the season. The so-called bigger teams will get these decisions, unfortunately. And yeah, again, it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. And if they make a mistake, then they know, well, actually, yeah, Stockley Park are going to have a look at it and advise them from there that needs to go and assess their decision making. But yeah, is what it is, Mike. Is what it is. But I must say, you know, Watkins, frustrating for me personally. You could argue that he was affecting Pinnock's decision making, but he wasn't as close to the ball as what Armstrong was, in my opinion. Although harsh, I think when I said on Friday, I can see people's argument, but Armstrong was a lot closer to the ball than what Watkins was last night. And personally, in my opinion, it would have been a very, very harsh one to go back and look at. But the argument is right. You know, if they're giving something, you know, like it was on Friday, why not go and have a look at? Because they didn't look at it last night. So, you know, but yeah, frustrating.
Let us know in the comments what you thought of that decision, listeners. Dan, no changes at halftime. Are you surprised?
No, because Thomas Frank very rarely makes changes at halftime. I can't remember the last time he did, actually. And obviously you see all the players warming up at halftime as well. None of them looked like they were particularly getting ready to come on. I think it's more so, even when we did make the changes, I don't think they were the right changes. Now, Thomas Frank likes normally, even sometimes when we're winning, to bring on an extra attacker to try and go for that extra goal. And obviously we saw Maghoma come on. I thought he was good. So I'm not criticising him, but I think you probably want to bring on a more attacking player for Yarmo, someone like Carvalho, and then Damsgaard can go into that deeper role like we're talking about. And then you probably want to bring on Thiago and have him up top with Wissa to just see what they can create together. And I think that would be more exciting. That would be more positive. I think once you've brought Maghoma on, you're not going to then take Yanelt off for an attacking player, because you're not going to leave Maghoma on his Premier League debut as the sole 6, whereas Yanelt, you could potentially do that. I mean, we weren't going to get much more defensively looser by making attacking changes, because we were still giving away chances, but we were starting to create a little bit. We had quite a few corners. You know, you could sense momentum shifting it slightly around the time of the goal. We got the goal within the first 10 minutes of the second half. So why not try and push on then? Villa aren't on the best form. You know, if we got that second, you could perhaps sense around the ground there would have been a bit of uncertainty. I thought the way Villa started the game as well, in the first 10 minutes of the game, they didn't look full of confidence. We won the ball off them quite high at points. Obviously, we gave them confidence with the goals. But if we did make perhaps more attacking changes, more positive changes, and we made them early, rather than just doing a like for like with Thiago for Wissa, Carvalho for Sharda, then I thought perhaps we would have stood more chance of turning it around. Obviously, flip side, we could have lost by more, but I don't see why we shouldn't have had a go. And Thomas Frank is normally someone that does that, so I'm a bit surprised that he didn't do that. And Roslev for KLP, I was convinced Vandenberg was going to come off, and then you can kind of accept it then because they play a similar role. But the way KLP gets forward from defence, and obviously we talked about the other three kind of are the defensive solidity when KLP goes forward. I mean, we just lost any kind of attacking verve from like our defence the moment he made that change. And yeah, you get the sense he was perhaps starting to rest people for Newcastle by that point. But yeah, it was a bit strange, the subs.
I'm not surprised though about Carvalho. I mean, we haven't talked about it very much since obviously what happened last week. I think he has screwed his Brentford career up controversially on that opinion. This will generate some views, I suspect. But Brentford's policy, no dickhead policy. So if your dad is kicking off behind the scenes about and that is a bold statement.
It wasn't him.
I know it wasn't him, but it is associated with him. His dad has put a bold statement out there, and if I was a manager of a football club, realistically, would I want someone like that around the dressing room? And the answer for me is no. But I did look at what a lot of people were saying on social media when this went out last week, and Fulham fans, Liverpool fans in general, have said quite a few times that his family, in particular his dad, have been very vocal about what they believe their son should be doing within a football club. But keep politics off of social media. But honestly, I think Carvalho is done. I actually think he's done. But
if he doesn't share those views, then he can't be responsible for what his dad's saying. And obviously, his dad's not the one in the changing room. And as long as he's not causing those issues,
I mean, it just causes a battle. Like I could tell Thomas Frank last week when he was asked, quite brutally, first question of the evening at the fans forum last week, and it comes out of thin air. The bloke says, "I'm a little nervous asking this question." I'm thinking, I know what this is straight away, and bang, he just goes off the bat and says, "Oh, Carvalho's dad's been mouthing off on social media." But yeah, but I think we should have seen going off that. You've seen my controversial point for this episode. I think we should have had Thiago coming on a lot earlier. I think I was really impressed with him on Saturday. With, I said, he's a presence up front. As a defender, you would not really know what to do with him. And when you're bringing him on in the 71st minute, personally, although we have we do like to see the late goals ourselves, I think, the way we were playing, I think that game was done and dusted by that point. So frustrating. I think he should have been on a lot quicker. And I love Thomas Frank, but I've said this before, in situations like this, I sometimes think he doesn't know what his best substitute is. He's very good when a game is going well and it's very positive. But last night, I think 3-0 down at half time, I would have been making changes personally because, and also we only had one shot last night, on target. Come on. But
yeah. No, you're right. You're right, Callum. I do just want to revisit the Fab thing quickly, because obviously the Instagram comment happened. It wasn't him. I disagree with you on that, Callum. I don't think his Brentford career is over. But I've been banging the drum for Fabio for so fucking long now, and we've not seen him get a sustained period in the team. We've seen him come on for 20 minutes, half an hour, 10 minutes. And then to see Paris Magoma, who, as you mentioned, Dan, I actually thought did a really nice job. He looked really composed in midfield. And it's great to see him because, going from Bolton's player of the season, and maybe we kind of thought at the start of the season that he's going to add another option in that midfield to get the injury to look, good against Villa when we're 3-0 down. That was positive. But then to on the flip side, for Fabio Carvalho to see Paris Magoma, who has just come back from a long-term injury, come out onto the pitch before he does in a game where we need goals to win the game or to come back. What is that? And it's not even like, I thought Fab, when he came on, he looked lively. He was winning the balls. He was in the press. He was in between the lines trying to make things happen. I don't know what he needs to do to get a bit of time down, because I feel like what his career at Brentford isn't over. I don't think it's over by like he's clearly a long-term project. He's still a young player, but I don't want to start him against Newcastle in that midfield against Guimaraes and Longstaff and Willock and Tonali and those big physical players who can run and get about the pitch. You can't start Damsgaard and Carvalho together in that game, but give him more time when we're 3-0 down at half time and we need some goals, right? I think.
Yeah, definitely. And Damsgaard can play that deeper role. He has done it this season. I think for people like Malcoma, you really want them to be making their debuts at home against Leicester at the weekend, for example, when we're 4-1 up, just to show what they can do, less pressure on them. I mean, we've had so many home games this season where we've, scored loads of goals and, won fairly comfortably, and they would have been better times. I know he was injured earlier in the season, so obviously he may not have been able to come on earlier on, but yes, it was a strange one. I just don't see why we couldn't just go for it a bit more. I agree that Damsgaard is probably better higher up, but he can drop deeper and he can still have an impact. And, there's almost nothing to lose at that point. And Carvalho deserves game time. He's looked bright when he's played. I assume he'll play in the cup against Newcastle in a couple of weeks, but he needs chances. He's got quality. I mean, he's appeared a few times for Liverpool. He's always done well in the Championship when he's played in the Championship. He's ready for the next step. So if he is a bit frustrated, you can understand it. Obviously, it's unfortunate that his position is probably Damsgaard's position where he normally starts, and you're not dropping Damsgaard. But when Jensen's fit, again, you can understand why he doesn't start, because Jensen will play that deeper role. Obviously, when Norgaard's fit, some games will have, a Norgaard. But when they're both out and there's a space there, I don't see why Damsgaard's not dropping deeper and Carvalho's not having a chance.
I just don't see how he fits in that centre midfield position, to be honest with you. Like, for me, I think I've always seen him as a winger. That's my personal point of view. But then, who's he going to drop? Because he can't. He's not going to drop. Sade. I mean, after last night, he probably will be on the bench on Saturday. But it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think just before we start talking about Newcastle a bit, KLP I thought outstanding again, defensively, offensively. I thought he was brilliant, and he's doing such a shift at left back. But we say this every week, so I don't want to avoid some repetition. But KLP,
he'll be up for player of the season playing like this. I think, to be honest with you, fans, I suspect, I'll be voting for him, but just need him to score that goal now. So 3-0 on Saturday, KLP. Yeah. So
Damsgaard again. I wanted to say another shining light. Took his goal really, really well. Watching it back as well to have the kind of his decision making around the box, in the box has been so good this season, and to kind of sidestep away from the defender, give himself a little bit more space, and then whack it into the top corner. Really, really nice finish. Collins again, I thought was excellent. You could tell that Watkins clearly targeted Pinnock as the weaker of the two centre backs. Brian, another game kind of on the fringes, on the edges. I thought he actually played better today as opposed to at Everton. And not today, sorry, last night as opposed to he did at Everton. But again, some more noise about him. And I think we all kind of hope for Kevin Schade to kick on after the hat-trick at the weekend. But he was sort of the Schade that we've seen most of the season. But listen, I don't want to take, we don't want to slag the team off too much. Aston Villa are a good side. Yes, they're out of form, but they've got quality players. And without Norgaard and Jensen as that kind of that stability in midfield, we did struggle at times to link the play and get our forwards involved more. And a lot of the time when Schade was on the ball, he was kind of isolated up against three men. So, anything else you want to talk about from the Villa game before we just do a quick preview of Newcastle, boys?
I think just with Brighton, I think he shouldn't be immune from being substituted. I think not necessarily at Villa, because I think Schade was probably worse than him, and Schade was the one that deserved to come off. But there's been games recently, especially some of the home games, where I think Brian's been the least performing out of the front three. And I think sometimes Thomas Frank shouldn't be afraid to take him off at times. He can be brilliant, but he can also do that thing where he cuts inside, kind of puts a cross in, but it hits the first man. And he does that quite a lot. And obviously early in the season, he scored a lot of goals. But if you look at his XG, he was overperforming. And that's even though he had a couple of penalties in there. Obviously, he had that cross shot thing against Ipswich, which was quite lucky to go in. So I think it maybe is to be expected that his output has declined slightly. He's obviously still a very, very good player, and he obviously will still be looked at by a lot of top teams. But I think if he was to end up at a top team, his consistency will need to improve, because they won't just keep him on for 90 minutes, game after game after game, without, replacing him or dropping him from the side.
Bang on. I think that's what I said in the video about the 5 things we've learned about Brentford this season. If he does go to a top 6 side, they will be incredibly frustrated with him, because they'll be used to standards that he hits 70% of the time, but that 30% of the time is what separates you from the best and the good. And I think there are times where he just fades and he goes to the out of games. But anyway, that's a different video. Let's talk about Newcastle, Callum. Big physical side, similar to Villa to a certain extent. Our home record against our record against Howe in the Premier League is horrendous. We've played 6, we've drawn once, we've lost 5 times. The first home game against a team with real quality, who we expect to be sort of in and around the European places come the end of the season. How are you feeling ahead of it, Callum?
Not looking forward to it, to be honest with you, especially after that. I'm expecting goals. We played them last season, the last game of the season. I think it was 4-2 in the end, wasn't it? Or something like that. We just need to try and keep Isak quiet, keep Gordon quiet, because he always seems to turn up against us. And we just need to kind of...
Fucking Harvey Barnes.
Honestly, I can't stand him. But, he's always at the... He was leaving last night when I flicked back to watch the game last night with Newcastle, and he was at the centre of everything. He was winning free kicks in good positions, scored a good goal as well. And he always seems to turn up against Brentford's, and we're expecting it on Saturday as well. He got good quality off the bench. I've always been a fan of Harvey Barnes. Surprisingly not been given as many opportunities as I think he should have this season. But they're a bit shaky at the back. So, if we can utilise that, then, anything's going to happen. But there's going to be goals. There is going to be goals on Saturday. Just got to keep Isak quiet and Gordon, see what happens. But not looking forward to it, Mike. Not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think he can guarantee goals for sure. You mentioned Isak at the end there, Callum. Dan, I kind of prefaced the Pinnock against Isak duel that will most likely happen, because I don't see Pinnock getting dropped, even though we might want him to, and we'll talk about that after this. Those two have history too. I watched the highlights from last season's game at the end of the season, and twice in that game in the first half, Isak had Pinnock's pants down, like completely robbed him of the ball, or got ahead of him, or just turned him inside out for a goal. It's not looking good, Brev. If those two are up against each other, I'm not going to enjoy that battle, I don't think, based on Pinnock's form this season.
Yeah, I think, on his day, Isak is one of the best strikers in the league. It depends how much Newcastle are able to create for him, because last week at Palace, I think they had 1 shot in the whole game, and I was really surprised to see that. It depends what Newcastle turn up, because obviously, by all accounts, against Liverpool, obviously it was 3-3 last night, and they were very, very good. So we know how they can be on their day. This is definitely the best team we've played at home this season, and it will be kind of an indication on whether we're good at home or whether we're just good against the teams that we're probably a little bit better than. Because all the away games, even Fulham, are quite a good side this year. So, I'm a bit worried. You would have thought he'd again probably target Pinnock. We're starting to see a trend of teams targeting Pinnock rather than Collins. Collins is getting a bit of an easier time of it, but I just want them to support each other. I just don't want to be left in one-on-ones all the time. Just be a bit cleverer, against certain teams we can maybe be super brave and we can go at them, because then we'll win 5-3 or whatever, but not against everybody. And we've got to be intelligent as to who we're playing at and who we're against and where we're at as a team, because obviously we're clearly, as a team, we're quite solid in the Premier League now, but we've still got a jump to go to get into that top 7, top 8 sort of sphere. So I think we've got to be a bit clever with it. I think Collins and Pinnock need to support each other. I don't want to see massive gaps. I don't want to see one of them up the pitch marking somebody else and the other one 20 yards behind on their own with Isak, because there's a good chance that Isak will win that duel and score, and he's only got to do it once to get a goal. So, yeah.
We mentioned at the top to both of you, either of you can pick this one up. Obviously, Aya could be back. That's a big could, probably won't be. Hopefully, Norgaard is back, although Thomas Frank said we'll have to see, which is a bit of an indication as to where he is. But I did. We mentioned at the top of the show in terms of maybe giving Pinnock a rest, whether he does that or not. I don't think he will. Remains to be seen. But Sepp Vandenberg, we brought him in as a centre half, and I think he played at centre half against City. Maybe I think that might be the only game where he was a centre back. Let me know if I got that wrong in the comments. And I've seen people say we should just firm Mads Rosselev at right back. And I do think there is a bit of credence in that, given what Mads is in the team for when he plays is his defensive work, because he's not comfortable on the ball. He doesn't get forward as much as we like to. It's only when he has space that he can produce crosses of quality. But a lot of the time it's backwards passing, it's sideways passing, it's not forward thinking, which to an extent is what people criticise Sepp for. It's like, well, you criticise Sepp, he's not right back, is he? He's centre half. So he's not going to be good on the ball. But to either of you, time to rest Pinnock and push Sepp into centre half and maybe just give Mads a go on the right again? To either of you?
No, I would probably prefer Pinnock to stay in than Mads come back in. Callum's got an argument with Collins going midfield, but I cannot see Thomas Frank doing that at all. So I expect it'll be a similar side. Although I would perhaps like to see Damsgaard in that deeper role. It's not ideal because I do think we'd want Janelt and Norgaard both together in that game. But I think based on the other options, which would be a young player coming in next to Janelt, I'd probably have Damsgaard in that deeper role and someone like Carvalho to start.
Callum, any changes that you'd make?
I think it's going to stay the same, but I personally, as I think Collins should be pushed into midfield and then bring Roslev in, drop Yarmolenko. I think that's the best way of going forward for this game. Having that, if we're going to be missing Norgaard, what was he done, Mike? Frank's been a bit coy on it.
Minor knock.
Yeah, that can mean anything. Well, we'll see him after Christmas then. Honestly, I miss back in the day. League One, League Two. They used to have a report go out every week from the medical team. You'd find out everything was going on. Now it's all shush shush. I don't understand why. Why is it all shush shush? We want to know what's going on with all these players. Hickey, where's he gone? He could be out sunning in Dubai, but if we, I don't know what's going on. But
I don't think we're going to see Hickey again this season. And I don't think where is Rika Henry? Again. Where is Rika Henry? Please, someone tell me where Rika Henry is. Honestly, he was supposed to be back before the first international break. We're now we're 13 games in now, are we?
Thomas Frank's really weird about it as well. He's always like, yeah, he's doing well, no setbacks, but he's not ready yet. Not ready yet. He's doing well, but not ready yet.
My worry is that, these players, there's only so many times, I've had my fair few injuries and I've seen people in general, in the professional game, they've had a fair few injuries and they just call it quits. They say, do you know what? I can't be bothered to put my body through this anymore. Rico's had a fair few injuries. Hickey's had a fair few injuries, been out for a sustained amount of time. Every time they come back, it's a year out. How many times realistically do you want to do that to yourself? And I don't want to say it, but would we ever see them play football again? Again, controversial point, but they'll be thinking about themselves and saying, do I want to be injured, and be out for a year and have all these major surgeries? Because I've told you, I've had it. Honestly, I've never played football again since. And I've fair play to anyone who does, but Hickey, he had this big injury. Then, he's set back, doesn't come back, when he's meant to. We have no idea what's going on with him. That's why I say these points. It's like, will we see them on the pitch again? And I remember when Rico, I think he broke his leg or something at Derby away in the Championship again, was out for a sustained amount of time and then was only back for a couple of years, and then bang, he's out for another year. And you just think to yourself, physically, mentally, would you realistically want to put yourself through that again? I wouldn't. So I hope we see them again, but
Silver as well.
Maybe that's why he's shush. I don't know, but
yeah,
hopefully
I think, boys, no matter about the injuries, no matter about the away form, we will be there on Saturday. We know we'll be there. We'll be reveling in a defeat, in a win, or we'll be in despair about a loss at home, first loss at home. But we will be there.
For me, I was saying, we look at the 18-19 season when we only won one game away from home, and that was against Rotherham 4-2. Other than the Bolton game, which was cancelled, we were given the 3 points. We only won one away game that season. So, please don't replicate this, Brentford. Honestly, we're spending a lot of money watching you away from home. So let's go win away, please. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mike, I'll leave it to you.
Good sign off. Good sign off, Callum. Let's hope for 3 points at the Gtech on Saturday at Beyond Brand with what we've been doing this season. We'll be back after that game for a full-time show. And we're also going to try something different this weekend. We're going to be doing a Twitter space after the game to kind of talk through hopefully what is a win, or talk through a first loss at home. The details for that will be on our social channel, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And there's also next week going to be a video. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that I tweeted out a thumbnail with a video about Mikael Damsgaard, which is just going to be talking about him in a bit more depth. I think he's finally starting to get some recognition from sort of the wider Premier League in terms of most improved players. He's got a lot of assists this season, another goal last night against Villa. So I'm going to take a dive into what makes him so good. And I've prepared a few screenshots. You know the gist if you watch the channel about what we're going to be doing on there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That'll be coming out next week. Drop a comment below. What did you think of the Aston Villa game? Was it a penalty? What do we need to improve? Should Janelt be starting as a sixth? Does Norgaard come back in? Please let us know in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels. Follow us on the socials at the Ealing Road, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Callum, Dan, it's been a pleasure. Let's hope for 3 points on Saturday.
Up the bees.